So the 4th of July is when we here in America celebrate our independence and our freedom. It's the freedom that allows me to come on here and talk about keto, even though some of the higher ups may not agree. It's also a day where we have a lot of cookouts, spend time with friends and family, and enjoy the fruits of our labor for a day. And don't let this super realistic disguise fool you. It's me under here. So today on Southern Keto, Keto Sam's gonna take you through a full July 4th extravaganza. A feast, if you will. So whether you want to cook out or cook in, I've got a bunch of recipes for you that you're gonna love. Stick around. So the first thing we need to think about is the main course. And nothing's more traditional on July 4th than cooking out hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill. I'll let you figure out how to make your own hot dogs and hamburgers, but to put on them, you gotta have a great chili. Now I'm gonna put all the links to the original videos right down in the description so that you can go check out the originals as well as get the recipes for these if it's something that you wanna make. So check out this chili recipe. So the first thing you're gonna need for this hot dog chili is a pound of ground beef, and you know I love this 85-15 from Aldi. If you don't have an Aldi near you, you're better off just moving to the closest town that does. The next thing you're gonna need is some of this beef better than bouillon. Now you may not have this in your cabinet, but I believe it's essential to make this hot dog chili the best it can possibly be. The next thing you're gonna need is an onion, and I love the Vidalia or sweet onion. Whichever you have, but you can use yellow or white, just whatever you got available to you. Then you're gonna need some mustard, just regular traditional. Don't get any of that fancy Grey Poupon or Dijon, just old regular mustard. The next thing you'll need is some Worcestershire sauce. Now hopefully you have some of this in your fridge, and some people don't like this, but hey, if you don't like it, you can leave it out. It's just not gonna taste as good. It gives it a great flavor and backbone. It pairs well with that better than bouillon, just for the backbone of this chili. Next thing you'll need is some ketchup. And I use the ketchup that I make, and if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it up above and in the description to show you how to make that. You'll need some chili powder. This is regular chili powder, not the dark chili powder that I use in some recipes that's much milder. You need the regular old chili powder. The next thing you'll need is some garlic powder. And I love this one from Badia. It's super cheap. We go through this like it's going out of style. And onion powder. Same thing. I use a ton of this stuff. This one I get at Walmart. It's great with a lot of stuff that I cook. You're gonna need some smoked paprika. Again, I get this at Walmart. If you go through spices like I do, get the cheap stuff. And you're gonna need some good old filtered H2O. Oh yeah, you'll see about that in just a minute. The next thing you'll need is some cayenne pepper. Now we're not gonna use much. This is not gonna be a super spicy hot dog chili, because in my opinion, there ain't such a thing, and I don't like to hurt while I'm eating, but you're gonna need a little bit. You're gonna need some salt, of course, Redmond's real salt, or pink Himalayan. Either way, just make sure it's got those minerals still in it. And you're gonna need some ground black pepper. Look at that thing shaking like that. It's ready to jump out of that jar. The next thing you're gonna need is some Splenda Magic Baker Brown, or your favorite brown sweetener. Lakanto has a good one too. First thing we're gonna do is just dice our onion up, and I'm using my chopper on the small dice setting, and if you don't have one of these, I'll put a link to it down in the description, but it's really handy if you got a lot of stuff to chop at one time. And what I do is I'll take those pieces like that, put them back on top of the chopper to get that small dice that I really want, because see how some of those pieces are kind of long like that? Put it in there and you've got a perfect tiny dice every time. And everything is consistent. So I'll put the rest of them in there, go ahead and chop those up, and we'll be ready to move on to the next step. This is what they look like when they're done after they're double chopped like that. Everything's consistent, which is important in this dish. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just take my pan and I'm going to fill the bottom with some good olive oil. That's the one I get at Sam's, but just use a good olive oil. And then go ahead and dump the onions right in. You don't necessarily have to let it get to temperature, because we're going to be cooking them down anyway. We got a lot of ingredients to mix in here. The first thing is the better than bouillon. So I'm going to put that in there, and we're going to fry that up along with the onions and just get all of it out
This stuff's sticky, so you may need a spatula or something else to get it out of there, but just put it in there, fry it up, get all those flavors getting real happy in there. Now you know it's getting right when the sizzle's tight, so once you hear it start sizzling, just like that, just cook those onions down. You want to get them almost to translucent, although it's kind of hard to tell because that's better than bouillon's in there, but just cook them down for a little bit. Just make sure you get them cooked down pretty good. Next we're going to dump in the ground beef, or you can dump the whole pack in if you want to and fish out the plastic like I did. And now I'm going to take a wooden spoon and just start chopping this meat up. And we're going to do this pretty consistently throughout this process, because by the time it gets done cooking, it's going to be to really small pieces of the meat. Now after all that's looking pretty good and you've chopped that up enough, you're going to go ahead and add your water in. And then once that water is boiling, we're going to bring it down to a simmer, and that's where it's going to stay and hang out for a little bit. Just put the lid on there, but you want to leave a little open in there, so just kind of partially on there, give it a chance for that to boil, or really simmer. So I'm going to put my timer on for 30 minutes. Now I'll put this recipe down in the description also, so you don't have to follow along, so check that out. If you want to see more condiments and sauces and all things keto, make sure you hit subscribe down there and hit the bell beside it. And anytime I do a new sauce, dressing, rub, condiment, or any other kind of recipe, you'll know about it. So this is what it should look like the whole time. It should be simmering just like this. And so, like I said, come back from time to time, give it a little stir, and go ahead and chop it up a little bit more with a wooden spoon, or whatever you want to chop it up with. But by the time we get done with this, you want tiny little pieces of meat. And then every time you go in there and chop it up like that, just put that lid back on, same way. Just leave a little open in there so that it can breathe just a little bit. Then go back in, mix it up again, break it up again, and do the same thing. Put that lid back on again. Then go back in, chop it up. Hey, you get the idea, right? Now make sure you go down to the description to read this recipe, because this is where I messed up. I dumped my spices in before I pulled the grease off. So I got rid of some of the spices too. And I put my brown sugar in. This is all stuff you should do after you drain the grease. But watch this. Put the ketchup in. I did all this stuff. But before you do that, you want to cook it all down and drain that grease out of it. But I missed it. Hey, I got a YouTube cooking channel, but I'm not perfect. So it still came out fine. But just not quite as much flavor as what I normally like. I went in with the Worcestershire sauce. Oh man, that adds some good flavor to that. And then went in with that regular old plain yellow mustard, just like I said earlier. So in theory, not on the video, you will do all this after you drain the grease off of it. But that's what that boiling water does. And even if you put the spices in like this, it's still going to come out the same at the end. I put it back on, let it come to a boil. And this is how you drain the grease off. Just stick your spoon down in there. But you see, I got some of my spices too. So it's going to have more flavor if you don't do that. If you do it step by step according to the description. But hey, I ain't perfect. Didn't claim to be. If you want a perfect video, this is not it. And this is not the right channel either. But I'm going to show you when I mess up. And I've probably made this 10, 12 times. But hey, I just got excited wanting to make this video for you. Anyway, I moved it over to a small pot, and that's the amount of grease and some of the spices that came out, so that's about what you'll expect. And the way I dispose of it, don't ever pour this stuff down your sink unless you need some new plumbing. I just put aluminum foil in a coffee cup, pour it in there, let it get all good and hard, and hey, some people will use it. And if you don't have the spices in there, you can use it for cooking after it gets hardened up a little bit. It's some good stuff. Now we got some of these all beef hot dogs cooking. We got this beautiful chili. But let me show you how at the end of this, what I like to do to finish it up. One thing I like with it is some Dijon mustard. And then I also love some sauerkraut. And this sauerkraut is really good if you can find it. It's organic and it's absolutely delicious. Nothing but cabbage and salt. And then I took these cheese wraps this time. I'm not such a big fan of these, but I wanted to give them a shot for this. They are 1 gram of carbs, but the way I stuff my dogs, I'd recommend something a little thicker, like a tortilla, like we do for the foldovers. But then we'll just take these hot dogs after we've cooked them to the way we like them, and I'm gonna put them either on that tortilla or that cheese wrap with a little bit of my ketchup first. Oh man, this is looking pretty good already. But we're missing some onions, and I just took some of those that I had chopped up before and put those on there. I like to leave them and not have them diced. And now, the star of the show. Oh man, look at that. That's good stuff, I guarantee you. And then I just top it with a little bit of that Dijon mustard, throw some of that sauerkraut on there. Man, it don't get much better than that. We just fold it over like that. If it's a tortilla, you fold it over too. Or you can just chop them up like that. Throw some onions right on top. You don't even need that fold over. You don't need that cheese wrap. You can just do it right on the plate. And I probably do this more times than I do the fold overs. Throw some of that beautiful chili on there. Ooh wee, I'm telling you right now, this is the good stuff. Look how good that looks. And put whatever toppings you like on this. And if I forgot anything, let me know what you like on your hot dog.
So I hope you enjoy that chili on your hot dogs and hamburgers. Throw some bacon on top of the burgers too. Oh man. Now if you're not in the hot dog or hamburger mood, or maybe you got some bad weather, but you want some ribs, check out these ribs, and you don't need a smoker to make them.
The first thing you're gonna need for this quick and easy rib recipe is some ribs. And I love using pork baby back ribs. I get them at Sam's Club. I find the prices there are the best, but a lot of times you can find them on sale at your local grocery store around the major grilling holidays, Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, things like that. And this is 2 full racks, or about 5.5 pounds. The next thing you're gonna need is some good filtered H2O. You're gonna need water. You're gonna need 1 cup of water specifically, and we're gonna add that in a little bit to our Instant Pot. Now this is the Mac Daddy Instant Pot. Now I'll put a link down below to this one if you don't have one already, but it's the big one. I mean, you're cooking 2 full racks of ribs in this bad boy, so it's gotta be big. The next thing you're gonna need is my rib rub, and I'll put a link up above and down in the description so you know how to make my rub. It's an essential part of this. It makes it delicious. Also, you're gonna need my barbecue sauce, and I'll link it down in the description as well, or just use your favorite barbecue sauce if you don't feel like making it. But this one is absolutely phenomenal in this recipe, and it's real easy to make. You're also gonna need some apple cider vinegar. You don't have to get the raw one filtered if you don't have it on hand. If you got the regular kind, it'll work fine, but this is all I buy. The next thing you're gonna need is some liquid smoke, and I like this hickory one, but whatever kind of liquid smoke you like will work just fine in this. It's gonna add that smoky flavor without the smoker. Now we're gonna take our ribs and pat them dry with a paper towel, or you can use a regular towel if you want to, but it's very, very important that you dry these off. This is gonna have a dry rub on it, and the dry rub needs to be dry. It doesn't need to be wet and get soaked into this. So in order for this to turn out right, make sure you don't skip this step. Dry your ribs off really, really well, and then the rest of the recipe is going to take care of itself. And now that you've got the ribs nice and dry, it's time to go on top with the dry rub. Now if you make the dry rub recipe that I'm going to link up there for you and down in the description, it is enough for these 2 huge racks of ribs. So that rub recipe will take care of about 5.5 to 6 pounds of ribs, or any other meat you like. And don't be skimpy with it now. Make sure you put plenty on there. And then once you have that, it's time for the spa treatment. Oh man, just give it a little rub like that. It'll appreciate it, and it'll thank you later. So don't be afraid to give it a little Swedish massage, or you know, the karate chop technique. Hey, whatever works for you. Just rub it down real good. Make sure you get that dry rub all in. And if you have any spots that's missing the rub, just add the rub to it. Just get it really nice and coated. And now that we've got that one side completely coated, it's time to flip these bad boys over and do the other side. Now, you've got this white membrane on the back that some people like to take off. but it's full of collagen. I leave it on there. It comes out just fine, but if you do want to take it off, just take a butter knife and put it up under it like that and peel it back. You can take it off if you don't like that, but I'm telling you, the collagen and the good benefits far outweigh. But you just take the butter knife, stick it up under there, and as easy as if you take a paper towel, grab onto it, and then peel it all the way back. That's the easiest way to do it. It helps you keep your grip, but I don't recommend it. So we'll go ahead and put the rub all over the other side of these ribs, get it nice and coated. We're going to rub it in also, and then we're going to be ready to cook this bad boy. Oh man, would you look at that? It looks good enough to eat already, but I sure wouldn't recommend it because this is going to be quick and easy. I definitely cook these first. So we're going to take our Instant Pot, put it down, and put the little base with the handles inside. This keeps it off of the liquid that we're going to put down in the bottom, so it just steams. And it's also going to help you pull the full racks out at one time if you want to pull out the full racks. Normally I'll just kind of break them apart after I get done, but put these in a perfect circle around the outside, and you can add your liquid first, but I'm going to go ahead and add it in now. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my cup of water and put it in. And once this Instant Pot is under pressure, this is going to provide the steam that cooks these ribs and makes them absolutely delicious. The next thing I'm going to put in is the apple cider vinegar. Now you're going to go in with 3 tablespoons of the apple cider vinegar inside that cup of water. And like I said, you could put this in before you put the ribs in, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. Then we'll go in with some liquid smoke. And I use a teaspoon of the liquid smoke. You could do 2 if you like it a little bit smokier. I feel like this adds a good smoky flavor to it, but it's up to you, whatever you like. You can do a tablespoon if you want. And then I just take the other rack and I'm going to put it right around the other side. So now we've got a perfect circle of ribby goodness. Oh man, a perfect pork circle. Now we're going to take the Instant Pot, go ahead and put your lid on, twist it into place and lock it. And we're going to go in for high pressure for 25 minutes.
Now, if you like cooking out or cooking in and you want to do it the keto way, hit that subscribe button down there and the bell next to it. And anytime I do a new video, outside or inside, you'll know about it.
Now all you have to do is put it in the 25 minutes and leave it alone. It'll say on and you know it's cooking. Once it gets down to these zeros like that, we're just going to leave it alone for 5 minutes. Now if you forget about it, you can go up to 8 minutes, but 5 minutes really for 5.5 pounds is optimal. Then we're going to go in and just flip this switch down, and basically what that does is releases the steam manually. And you can leave it alone for some recipes like my boiled peanut recipe, but for this we want to have a manual release just to make sure that these don't overcook. And once that pin drops down like that, down inside, then it's safe to open it. So you'll just go ahead at that point and take the lid off. Oh man, look at that. You see how that meat just pulls away from the bone just like that, where you can see it? That is perfect. You don't want them to completely fall off the bone, so the 5 minutes is perfect. I left them for 8 just to show you that if you do it just a little bit too long, it's still going to be fine, but it pulls apart just a little bit easier. Basically with a good rib, you want it to stay on there, but be super tender when you get ready to eat it. Now, I like to pull these out like this anyway, just to fit them on this tray, because I'm putting them on a baking sheet lined with aluminum foil. And for the last step, we're just going to cover them with a beautiful barbecue sauce, and then I'll show you how to finish them. So just take your barbecue sauce. I just like to pour it on the ribs, and you can either use like a silicone brush like what I'm using. You can use a mop if you want to. Whatever you've got that can get that barbecue sauce evenly distributed over these ribs, because the last part of it is we got to get that barbecue sauce nice and crusted on there so that it just makes a complete beautiful rib. And after you got both sides completely smothered with that barbecue sauce, it's time for some saucing music. Now what we have to do to finish these is put your oven on broil and let it heat up. Put your oven rack as high as you can up there, so it's only going to be about 6-7 inches from the top once you put these ribs in there. And we're just going to let them cook down just for a few minutes. Keep your eyes on them. They should be bubbling, and this is what they should look like when they're done. Oh man. You want a little bit of char on there? That's from that barbecue sauce. That's what I'm saying. If you make my barbecue sauce, they're going to come out absolutely perfect like that, and you're going to love them. The combination of that dry rub and that barbecue sauce together makes these phenomenal, and it's so super easy, anybody can do it. Now the way I like to serve these is just take a little rack like this, and my two favorite things to eat with ribs for any kind of cookout is my coleslaw. And I just realized I never released the video for the coleslaw. So if you want to see that, let me know if you want to know how I make my coleslaw. So I like to put just a little bit of that on the side, as well as some deviled eggs. Now I've got a deviled egg video coming out that's going to show you how to make deviled eggs several different ways. Hope you love it. And there you have it. Quick and easy ribs, a side of coleslaw, and some deviled egg. Hey, y'all let me know when you make these ribs and what you think about it. I think you can tell just by the video that they're absolutely delicious. And I'll put some more recipes over here that I think you're gonna like. Check out that playlist and you'll find a lot of other ideas that you're absolutely gonna love. Thanks so much for sharing these videos and all your comments and likes. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Those ribs are amazing. Now, if you decide you wanna grill out some chicken instead, but you don't have a good barbecue sauce, let me show you this barbecue sauce that I make that works great for chicken or any other meat you want to put it on. So you're gonna need some tomato sauce, and I'll put all these ingredients in the recipe down below. You're gonna need some butter, and I prefer the Kerrygold. You need some keto honey. Then you're gonna need some liquid aminos. You're gonna need this real good apple cider vinegar with the mother. Some liquid smoke. Some cayenne pepper. Then you're going to need onion powder, and of course garlic powder, some smoked paprika for that smoky flavor, a little bit of salt, and then some of this chili powder, and this dark chili powder gives it a really great flavor. You're going to need Worcestershire. You're going to need some of this Splenda Magic Baker blend, and then the garam masala, the secret ingredient. So we need to open up this can of tomato sauce first. And then once that's open, I just pour it into this. You can pour it right in the pot, but I just love using my favorite yellow mixing bowl. So that's what I did. We're gonna mix up our spice blend. Mix that up really, really well. And then we'll mix up all our other ingredients. We'll mix in our apple cider vinegar, our liquid smoke, and some more liquid smoke, our Worcestershire sauce. Yeah, that gives us some good flavor, as well as the liquid aminos. We'll stir that up real good. Now, if you like keto or low carb or sugar-free condiments, make sure you subscribe to my channel right now here, and you'll know anytime I upload a new video. The next thing we gotta do is turn that stove on to medium heat. And we're gonna start with some butter, melt that down really good, and we're gonna put in all our spices. We're gonna mix these in and cook them until they get fragrant. So when they start smelling real good, you know you're done, and it'll be time to put in your next ingredient. So we're gonna dump that tomato sauce in, stir that up really, really well. We're gonna add in our wet ingredients and our keto honey. Then we're gonna have to go in with some of this Magic Baker blend for a little bit of extra sweetness. We'll mix that up again. We're gonna start to cook that for about 5 minutes. So after about 5 minutes, it's gonna start thickening up. We're gonna go ahead and turn that heat off. That's when we'll mix in the garam masala. So we'll put that in, mix that in really, really well. Get a jar and a funnel. And then we'll put our sauce in there.
And we're gonna go ahead and put that in the refrigerator for at least an hour, or at least until you're ready to eat. Now at this point, the sauce is done. It is thick and delicious. So all it's missing is something to put it on. So what are we gonna put it on? Well, I'm doing these country style bone-in ribs tonight. You can do whatever you want, and you can actually stick it back in to make it sticky. If you wanna put it back in the oven for a little bit, I just did that wet sauce, which I like to serve with my macaroni and cheese. I'll put that recipe up in the top corner in case you wanna make it, because it's a perfect complement to this. You might have smoked a pork butt outside, and if you did, that barbecue sauce goes great on it. We need to think about some side dishes now. How about some tater salad? This is my Nana's tater salad recipe with Chris Cook in Nashville's potato recipe. You could also boil radishes to use in this. Just dice them up, throw them in a pot of boiling water, get them fork tender, and then use the sauce that I put on this potato salad and put it on those radishes. So here's what you're gonna need to make the potato part of this potato salad. You're gonna need a full carton of egg whites. I get these at Food Lion. That is 32 ounces of egg whites. You can crack the eggs if you want to and separate them, but man, this sure is a whole lot easier just to pour them out of here. You're gonna need some cream cheese. You're gonna need some Kerrygold butter. You're gonna need some fresh mozzarella. Make sure you get the fresh kind because you need the moisture in that to make this come together. You're gonna need some salt. You're gonna need some plain beef gelatin powder, unflavored. You're also gonna need some toasted beef gelatin powder. I've got some Parmigiano Reggiano left over, so that's what I'm gonna use. Normally I would use Parmesan. And in the original video, Chris even uses the Parmesan in a can, or as we like to call it, shaky cheese. So you can use that also if that's what you got. I kind of like to use the regular Parmesan and just grate it up. You're gonna need some egg white protein powder. And the last thing you'll need is a little bit of heavy whipping cream just to get the consistency right. I've got everything measured out here. Of course, the egg whites, you're gonna use the whole carton, so that one's measured. About 3 tablespoons of butter, couple ounces of the cream cheese, 4 tablespoons of the egg white powder, about 3 ounces of the mozzarella cheese. The salt, I'm just going to throw a pinch in there, so no need to measure that. The teaspoon-ish of Parmesan cheese, and the heavy whipping cream, we're not going to measure because we're just going to add a little bit of that at a time to help this mixture blend up. So let's go over and get started. I've got my butter in the hex-clad pan. I've got this on about a medium heat. I'm just going to start mixing this around, coat the bottom of this pan. This thing does not stick. This is the nicest pan that I've ever had. It doesn't stick at all. I'm just going to get a nice even coat of that butter all over the pan. And make sure you check out Chris's video for some more in-depth instructions, but you can probably follow it pretty easy from this. Now that the butter is melted, I'm going to go ahead and pour in this entire container of egg whites. And I left it out for probably 10 minutes or so, just to let it get almost to room temperature. That's just going to help it cook just a little bit faster at a little bit lower heat. You want to make sure you don't brown these. It's not as important on this recipe as it is the mashed potatoes, because if you're doing mashed potatoes, you definitely don't want them to be brown. This, you're going to have a sauce over the top, so it's not quite as important, but the less brown, the better. Just going to move this around a little bit in the pan, just until it starts cooking. So while the eggs are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and add in everything into the Ninja. And put in the cream cheese, put in the mozzarella. I've got both gelatins together, the non-toasted on top and the toasted on the bottom. Just going to put a little bit of salt in there. And then I'm going to put in the Parmesan cheese. And so then I'll be ready. As soon as the eggs are done, we're going to put the eggs right in on top of that. And then we'll start combining it before we cook it. Now we got some action going on. These egg whites are starting to cook a little bit. You can see a few little pieces swimming around in there. And that butter, yeah, those things are happy right now. I'm going to let it cook a little bit longer. Let it tighten up a little more. And then we're going to mix it up. So these are tightening up a good bit now. You can see a lot of cooked egg. I'm just moving it around to keep it from browning anywhere. And as this comes together a little more, I'm going to start breaking it up into little chunks. Let it get nice and dry in the pan. I'll show you what that looks like when it happens. Now the eggs are coming together real nicely. As you can see there's still some liquid in there. We'll cook all that out. I want these to be as dry as they can possibly be before we put them in the blender and blend them up. So while those eggs are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and preheat the oven to 275. It's going to cook low and slow. So what we're going to need to finish Nana's tater salad is some celery. You're going to need some sweet gherkins, no sugar added, of course. This one's sweetened with Splenda. The other gherkins have a ton of sugar in them, and this one has none. So much better choice. This is how we can make this recipe still and keep it keto. You're going to need 2 hard-boiled eggs. You're going to need a batch of my Duke's mayonnaise. We're going to use about a cup of that. You're going to need some yellow mustard. I just get this kind at Walmart. It's one of the few things that companies just can't really mess up and squeeze carbs into. 0 carb, clean ingredients. One day they'll probably end up adding sugar to this, but for now it's still good. You're going to need some pimentos. Those are sliced. We're going to dice them. And you're going to need some fresh cracked pepper. I've almost cooked out all the liquid out of here, so that's looking really good. Another thing you can observe is when they stop smelling like eggs cooking and they smell more like butter, then you know you're almost there. It really doesn't have much of an eggy smell anymore. So now that these are good and dry, I'm just going to put them right in the blender on top of everything else that we put in there already. And I'm going to take them over to the Ninja and I'm going to blend this up. And we're going to make the potatoes for Nana's tater salad. We've got a full blender here. I'm going to put the lid on it. I lost this little plastic thing somewhere along the way, so I usually just get a paper towel, put over the top of it. I'm going to blend this on low, and I'll show you what it looks like. This is the best blender. I love this thing. I'm going to turn the power on. I'm going to put it on the dough setting, which is like the low. It's just going to start working this and incorporating all this together. It's going to get to a mashed potato consistency. Then we're going to take it out and I'm going to fold in the egg white powder. So I'll let this go for a few minutes and I'll be right back once this is fully incorporated. What I'm going to do is add just a little bit of this heavy cream just to help things out a little. Maybe a tablespoon. If you heard how the motor changed there, that's just going to help work all this together. In a second, I may need to take the top off and push that down in there, but this Ninja does a really good job of kind of pulling everything in. You can see it working right there. So it may end up grabbing this and bringing it down in. We'll see. This is all moving and shaking in there, so I'm going to go up one more level. See how that's working in there? It's like a tornado in there. Pulls everything to the middle. Brings it down through there. It's going to come out perfect. I only added a tablespoon of heavy cream in there. If you can see this texture, it's kind of like a paste, but it's super smooth. And that's exactly what you want. So I'm going to transfer all this to a mixing bowl and show you the next step. I transferred this to a bowl. So what I'm going to do now is just fold in this egg white powder a little bit at a time. So I'm going to do about a quarter of it, maybe about a tablespoon. So I'm just going to kind of fold it in like that a little bit at a time. Press it down to make sure that powder gets in there really well. Then I'll add in a little more. And do the same thing. Just make sure that's really well incorporated. So fold it over, press it down. We don't want any air bubbles. And we want to make sure that egg white powder is consistently through this mix. Now all that egg white powder is incorporated into here. And we're ready to put it on a baking sheet. As you can see, I've got my favorite mixing bowl here. If you watched any of my other videos, you may remember the story about this mixing bowl. So I hope at least one person was paying attention. So if you were, you know the story of this bowl, leave me a comment down there. We're going to take this over. I've got a parchment paper lined baking sheet. We're going to put it on there and spread it out. I'll just give it one final stir just to make sure that egg white powder is incorporated in there. Now I'm going to pour it all on the middle of this parchment paper. And if you saw my other video, you'll know my parchment paper trick of how to get it to stay flat, not roll up on you. Try to keep it all together in the middle. So what you're trying to do here is spread it out to about a 1/2 inch thick, because we're going to bake this. It's going to become our potatoes for Nana's tater salad. It's going to bake kind of like in a big block like this. We're going to cut it into little squares. And then the other thing you want to do here is just get your edges right. You don't want it being thin on the edge where it might burn. So just try to tighten it up like that. I'm going to throw this in a 275-degree oven, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. We're going to go 30 minutes on this. And we'll take it out after 30 minutes, let it cool, and we're going to cut it into taters. So I've got all my ingredients chopped for Nana's tater salad dressing. So I've got 1/2 cup of celery. I've got 1 cup of the sweet gherkins, 2 hard-boiled eggs chopped, and 2 tablespoons of pimentos. I'm going to put those in the mixing bowl and then add in my other ingredient. Nana used to can her own pickles. My papa would grow the cucumbers and then she would can every fall. She had the best pickles. I feel fortunate that I have found these to at least get close. So I've given that a good mix. Now I'm going to add in 1 cup of my Duke's mayonnaise, how creamy that is. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of mustard. And she said a dash of Thousand Island dressing. I'm using this G. Hughes sugar-free Thousand Island dressing. A lot of times I'll make it myself, but I also keep this just to make it easy. So a dash, how much is a dash? I'm going to say about that much. Then the last thing I'm going to do is just some fresh black pepper. So that's it. I'm just going to mix this together, and we're going to wait for the taters to be ready. So when this comes out of the oven, this is what it looks like. It should have a nice golden brown color. And when you touch it, it should feel like a nice fork tender potato. So we're just going to slice it all the way down the length through the entire sheet. We're going to get some uniform pieces going on there. Basically, whatever size you like your potatoes and potato salad to be, that's the same thing you want to do with this. So just slice it all the way down, just like that, nice and slow, and cut it into bite-sized pieces. When you're all done, this is what it should look like. And now it's time to combine the taters with the tater salad dressing. So I just try to take the sheet like this and dump it into the bowl. And, well, I guess it was kind of a fail, but guess what? If you spill some, pick it up, throw it right in there, you're good to go. This is how Nana's tater salad looks like when it's done. It is the most delicious tater salad you're going to have, and I hope you enjoy it. And the way she always liked to finish this to make a nice presentation at the table was just sprinkle the whole top with some sweet paprika. We didn't have smoked paprika back then, so this is what she did. And it gave it a nice flavor. But more importantly, it made it look absolutely fantastic. Now that's some good tater salad right there. Another thing you can make is coleslaw. Nothing goes better with burgers and hot dogs or on burgers and hot dogs than a good coleslaw. Check this out. So the first thing you're going to need to make this coleslaw is some coleslaw mix. Now I like this tricolor. It's got green cabbage, carrots, and red cabbage. But if you want a little lower carb option, get the one without the carrots. The next thing you're going to need is your favorite mayonnaise, and mine is the Duke's mayonnaise that I make. This is actually version 2.0. Look for that video coming out real soon. Then you're going to need some yellow mustard, and you can pretty much get whatever brand you want. I get whatever's cheapest because they haven't started adding sugars into those yet. The next thing is some apple cider vinegar. Always get this raw unfiltered. It's the best for the guts. And then use your favorite salt. Mine is the Redmond's Real Salt, or I'll use Pink Himalayan. They both got the minerals. They're both great. And then just use your favorite sweetener. Mine is always Magic Baker's, but I found this Lakanto monk fruit on sale at Big Lots, so I'm going to use that. The next thing you're going to need is some black pepper. I like the coarse grind just because I like the texture in my coleslaw, but fine is fine also, whatever you got. The first thing I like to do is just take and put this coleslaw mix into the blender.
because I don't like the big chunks. Now this is an optional step. A lot of people like the big shreds like that, but I just don't. So I'm gonna put that into my Ninja, and if you just pack it in like that, it fits perfectly in the small one. Hey, to me, the smaller the container, the less cleanup, the better. So I'm just gonna give this a few pulses until it gets to the consistency that I want. And I like a real small dice on this. You can of course do it by hand too if you need the exercise or whatever, but that blender just makes a little less work for you. And this is the consistency that I like. That's the size of the coleslaw. Once I get done pulsing it, and just make sure you pulse it a few times and just check it. You don't want to go and put it on blend and have a cabbage soup. So just be careful with that and get it pulsed to the size that you like. The next thing that you gotta have for this recipe is a yellow mixing bowl. And if you don't have one, you better go on the hunt. I hear they're disappearing nationwide. So just go in with your mayonnaise first of all. Make sure you get it all out. This is just the best dressing. And then you're gonna go in with your mustard. Get the mustard in there. Oh man, this dressing for this coleslaw is looking good already. Go in with your apple cider vinegar. And make sure you don't leave that out, even if you gotta use that crappy non-raw filtered stuff. Make sure you get it in there. And then go in with your sweetener. Now this is an essential part, as you know, of any southern coleslaw. If you've ever had it, you know it's got to have a little bit of sweetness in there to really bring out the flavor of whatever you put it on. Then go in with your salt and go in with your pepper. This is going to come together so nice. You're going to absolutely love this. Now that we got all the ingredients in there, we need to make sure they get to know each other just a little bit better. So give them a good mix. So I'm going to start out with a whisk. And my goal for this video was to see just how many kitchen tools I could use to mix this stuff together. So leave me a comment down below and let me know how many you count. So I'm going to go right in there with my coleslaw that I pulsed up. Now there's still a few big pieces in there. A little bit never hurt anybody. So then we'll just give that a good mix. Just make sure that you get all of that dressing. Just make sure you get that mixed up really, really good. And hey, if you don't feel like that whisk is doing a good enough job, hey, pick another tool. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Let's go in and see how this one does. Well, I'd say we're getting there, but we ain't there yet. Let's try something a little bit different. Here we go. Oh man, that was a workout. Now when you're good and tired, go ahead and take a bowl and then transfer that coleslaw that's very well mixed. It better be very well mixed by now, into a smaller bowl. Now that's very important. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute, because there's an important step that you don't want to miss to this. And if there's any left in that yellow mixing bowl and your hands are clean, just go ahead and scoop it all in there. I ain't going to tell anybody if you don't. And now the step that I'm talking about that you do not want to miss. Once you get all this in the bowl, make sure you press it down all the way in there. Now what that allows it to do is that puts all the sweetener and all the salt in contact with that coleslaw, which is going to bring out some moisture, because as you can probably tell, it's not at the consistency that you want yet. That's going to happen in the next step. Just make sure you press it down as good as you can, and then we're going to take some plastic wrap and put right on top so it can take a nice rest for just a little while, and when it's done, you're going to have some great coleslaw. And one thing I did want to mention, you can make this the night before you want to serve it. The thing you need to do is just take about a tablespoon of some fresh lemon juice. Make sure it's fresh. Put that in there, and that'll help it keep its good color and freshness. So just throw it right in the refrigerator. Keep it for at least an hour, or until you just can't take it anymore, and you gotta get it out of there. When you can't stand it anymore, go ahead and take it out, and we're ready to serve this up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. One of my favorite ways to serve this is right alongside some ribs. And if you haven't seen my rib video, I'm going to put a link to it up above and down in the description for some ribs. These exact ribs that you can have ready in an hour. So I like to put this on the side of that. And oh man, tell me that coleslaw does not look delicious. It's cool, crisp, and creamy. And hey, if you're fancy, Throw about 3 deviled eggs there and you got a complete meal. Let me know if you enjoy it.
Now that coleslaw is creamy and delicious. And another side dish that you can make with it is broccoli salad. Now listen, even if you don't like broccoli, I think you're gonna like this. Check it out. So the first thing you're gonna need to put together this broccoli salad is some broccoli. And I've got 3 crowns of broccoli here. Make sure you get the fresh kind. The frozen is not gonna work. You're gonna need some bacon. This is my favorite kind from Aldi. I feel like it just crisps up the best. You're gonna need some of my Duke's mayonnaise, either the regular Duke's or in this one I use my Duke's spreadable bacon mayonnaise because I feel like that gave it a little extra bacon flavor. You're gonna need some pine nuts. Now, if you don't have pine nuts, you can also substitute almonds. You just wanna chop them up pretty small like that because you just want a little bit of crunch, and nuts for some people just don't work, so if you can't have them, don't use them. You're gonna need some of this Splenda Magic Baker Blend. This is just for a little touch of sweetness. This is my favorite sweetener by far. And you're gonna need some cheese. Now I use this extra sharp cheddar cheese. That's the traditional southern way to do it. We love this extra sharp cheddar. You're gonna need some sour cream. This is by far my favorite brand because it's super affordable if I don't go to Aldi. Just make sure you get the full fat kind. You're gonna need some white wine vinegar. And we're gonna need to season this. I'm gonna use Redmond's Real Salt or Pink Himalayan. You're gonna need some black pepper, and you can either grind it fresh or just take it right out of the container like this. If you can't have it, you can leave it out. So those are all the ingredients we're gonna need. Now I'm gonna show you how to put together this delicious Southern style broccoli salad right after this. So the first thing you wanna do with your broccoli is just cut it into bite-sized pieces. Now remember, this is going in a salad, so we don't want huge pieces. You just want a little bit fork-sized, piece. So cut them about like that and just go through and work them all out. And then you could use the other part of the broccoli if you want to make a vegetable stock or something like that, or just toss it or compost it. And then after you've got them all cut off the crown like that, just go ahead and throw them right in your favorite bowl. Y'all know what mine is. Some people say that broccoli causes bloating for them, so don't worry. I'll be coming out with some non-broccoli recipes soon. Now, if you like 4th of July videos, or any other videos about the holidays, or just good food, and you're not subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button down there, click the bell right next to it, and you'll be notified anytime I dress up in a silly costume, or most often when I don't. We're gonna cook this bacon real simple and easy, but the first thing we gotta do is dice it up into small pieces. But don't worry, you're not gonna have to use a pot. You're not gonna splatter grease all over the place. I'm gonna show you the easiest way to do this with no mess. And now I've gotta grate this cheddar cheese. Now somebody leave me a comment down below and tell me why that I would grate my own instead of just buying it already shredded in the store. Let me know. Now that my cheese is grated, it's time to deal with this bacon. So you can not only put full strips of bacon in this microwave bacon grill, but you can also cook it cubed or cook little chips or whatever you want to do with it. This thing works great for everything. I'll put a link in the description in case you don't have one. And speaking of tools, this is my absolute favorite kitchen gadget, the chopper. I'm going to chop this red onion. I'm pretty sure I forgot to tell you that you need a red onion for this recipe, but you need red onion for this recipe. And that's what it should look like right there. So your broccoli is already in your favorite bowl. One day my sister-in-law is going to kill me for this, but hey, if she never watches my videos, she'll never know, right? So anyway, I'm going to put the cheese in now. We can go in with a few of these ingredients. Now I'm going to go in with the pine nuts. And like I said, if you don't have pine nuts, just use almonds. Chop them up really, really small. You just want a little bit of extra crunch in there. You could use another nut. Macadamia is a good one also. Just chop them up small. And then add in that red onion that I forgot to tell you about to begin with, because that's going to add a little bit of spiciness. And you just saw me add in the bacon, so add it in, stir that up really, really well, and let's go on to the next step. So we're going to take that spreadable bacon grease mayonnaise and go ahead and add in the sour cream. And we're going to combine this together, but before we do,
we can go ahead and season it. So go ahead and put in your salt and pepper and combine it really well together. And then the next thing to do is put in that white wine vinegar. That's the good stuff. And that's a little secret to this to really bring out the flavor. And then go ahead and whisk it in really, really well. Make sure it's well combined before we go to our next step. Now you tell me right now, does this look happy or not happy? It looks pretty happy in there, but I think it could be a little bit better. What can we do to make it better? Let's go ahead and add in that dressing. Oh, that's the good stuff. That's the secret to this. That's what's going to give it its delicious taste. That's how you're going to make people that don't like broccoli like broccoli. That's our secret in the South. Now you know it. And now there ain't nothing to it but to do it. So I hope you enjoy this. It's the most delicious thing you'll ever have. And people that don't like broccoli, I believe will like broccoli after they try this. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think in the comments.
So I hope you enjoy that broccoli salad. Now we can't do a proper cookout without a dessert, right? How about a great blackberry cobbler recipe? Because they're in season right now. And this cobbler is absolutely delicious.
Now the first thing you're going to need for this blackberry cobbler is the blackberries. You're going to want about 4 cups or about 20 ounces of blackberries. And you can use a little bit more if you want to, just depending on what you have and how blackberry-y you want it. The next thing you need is some of your sweetener. Now, normally I use the Magic Baker blend, but I found this Lakanto monk fruit sweetener on sale at the Big Lots, so that's what I'm using. Then you're going to need some brown sweetener. This is the Magic Baker Brown, one of my favorites, absolutely. You're going to need some butter, Kerrygold butter, or the grass-fed butter you can find at Aldi, which is the same thing. The next thing you're going to need is some sunflower seeds. Now these are roasted and unsalted, which is the way to go with these. The next thing you're going to need is some pumpkin seeds. Now these, you want these to be raw, not roasted, and not salted either, because we're going to pulse these up and they're going in the topping. You're going to need some almond flour. This is my favorite that I get at Sam's Club. It's the Blue Diamond. It's finely sifted, and so it cooks up just like it's supposed to. The next thing you're going to need is a lemon, and you can get one if you want to. I usually buy them by the bag at Aldi because they're so super inexpensive, and I use them in a lot of things just like my lemon dessert. And I'll link that up above in case you haven't seen that one. You're going to need some xanthan gum. This is going to help thicken up this cobbler, and this is an essential ingredient in keto cooking. So if you don't have xanthan gum, go out and get you some. You're going to need it for a lot of my recipes for sure. Now we're going to take these pumpkin seeds and put them right into my little Ninja blender. And I always link all my kitchen tools down in the description, so if you ever need anything, you'll know where to find it. So I'm just going to give this a pulse. Now you don't want to blend this, you just want tiny pieces. And there are going to be some of these pumpkin seeds that are still whole like that. And if you see that, you want to go just a little bit more. You want most of them to be pretty pulsed up, but a few of the whole ones are just fine. This is the way I like to do mine, just like that. This is going to get cooked in just a minute as our crumbly topping. Oh man. So you want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. That's all you need. It's perfect for this recipe. Now take your yellow mixing bowl, and if you don't have a yellow mixing bowl, it just ain't going to come out right. But put your pulsed pumpkin seeds and put your sunflower seeds in there together. And then we'll go ahead and go in with that brown sweetener. Oh man. And then put that almond flour in there. We're going to mix all this up. This is going to make our crumbly topping. And just make sure you put that xanthan gum in there too. That's what's going to help thicken it up. And if you need to do a little more after you try this recipe, you can always add a little more. But go in and break up all of that brown sweetener. This stuff tends to clump up. Now I've heard that the Lakanto monk fruit brown doesn't clump up as much as this, but I just love the flavor of this, so that's why I use it. Next thing you're going to do is prepare your butter. Now for this crumb topping, and hey, some people might call this a crisp, but where I come from, this is a southern cobbler, So that's what I'm calling it. It's a cobbler. You can call it a crisp if you want to. Hey, we can argue about it. I don't really care. This is the way my Nana did it. It was a cobbler. But then again, when she made it with apples, she called it an apple crisp. So I'm not really sure. Anyway, you're going to take your butter as best you can because it's been softened up. So it's real soft right now. And just cut it into as small pieces as you can. Whatever the best you can do is. And we're going to fold that in to the other stuff here in just a minute.
Now, if you'd like to see more dessert recipes like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel down here. The little icon just lit up for you. Hit the bell next to it, and anytime I do a new dessert recipe or any other recipe, you're going to know about it.
So now we'll take that butter as good as you can cut it up and just put a little bit at a time into this other dry mix. And then just kind of spread it out in there the best you can. Put little pieces of that grass-fed butter all over the place. Don't worry, we're going to get to know each other real good, but make sure you spread it out a little bit so when you go to mix it, it's a lot easier to mix together. And then just take your fork like this and mash it all in together. Because that butter is soft and it's going to mix in really, really easy, and you're going to make this nice crumbly topping that's going to go on this beautiful blackberry cobbler. Oh man, looks like, huh? Oh, we need some crumble music. You got it. And when you're all done, this is what it should look like. It shouldn't be fully incorporated. You want little chunks throughout. It's a nice crumbly topping for this cobbler. Now I have an 8x8 pan here. I'm going to go ahead and spray it down with some good olive oil spray. And you can use avocado oil if you want to. I actually like that better, but I was out of it, so I always encourage you to use what you got. Then I'm going to take a huge bowl and I'm going to go ahead and put in those blackberries. Oh man. We're going to go ahead and make the filling here. So pick out any little bad pieces you got or whatever, and any bad berries, and we're going to go right in with some almond flour. Just sprinkle it around the best you can. I know it's thick. I know it's hard to spread around, but just do the best you can. Now, I'm going to take my lemon juicer, and I'll put a link in the description to that. But I'm going to take half a lemon, if I can keep it from falling, and I'm just going to juice that right into this blackberry and almond flour mix. Oh man. Squeeze it nice and tight. Get all that juice out of there. It's going to make a nice little addition to this. Now I'm going to put in some more xanthan gum. This is going to thicken up this filling. And you absolutely need that. Then we're going to take some of the sweetener and put it in also, because we want a little bit of sweetness, because the berries are a little bit, tart. So we're going to offset that just a little bit with some sweetener. Oh man, let's go in with one more. Oh yeah. And that's where we're at once we put all the ingredients in. Now we just got to go in. We're going to start stirring this up. We want to get this all together. So we'll do that, and I'll see you back in just a minute. Now after that's all well combined and proper, we're going to go ahead and pour it right into that 8x8 baking pan. And listen, if any of that just happens to fall on the counter, just scoop it up, taste it, make sure it tastes good. I ain't going to tell anybody if you don't. Can I just tell you right now, this is going to be some good eating tonight. And hey, there's chunks in there. Don't worry about it. Once it cooks out, you're not going to see all that. It's going to be absolutely delicious. Just push it down as much as you can in there. Try to get a nice flat layer, because what we're trying to do is prepare this base for that crumbly topping. And now the next step is we got to get our crumbly topping. We've already made it, and we just got to start sprinkling that right on top. You just want to evenly distribute it over that whole blackberry base layer. Oh man, this is going to be good. See how beautiful that looks already? Well, it's about to get a whole lot better. as soon as we move on to the next step. Just make sure you press it down real good in there like that, and then it's ready to take a trip to the oven. So let's go right over to the oven, put that in there, and we're going to put it on for 30 minutes. And after it's done its time and it's fully reformed, at least that's what they say, we're going to pull it out, we're going to put it down, and oh man, can you see this? Do you see how good this looks? It is nice, it's got a crispy topping, and wait till we get into this thing. You're absolutely gonna love it. Now you know what you're not gonna see is me eating this thing. Some people just don't look good eating on camera, and I'm one of them. But if you can see this, after I scoop this out onto the plate, if you don't think it's not absolutely delicious, hey, don't make it. That's your prerogative. But I'm gonna tell you, if you try this, you're absolutely gonna love it. And if this consistency is a little bit too thin for you, you can always throw a little bit more of that xanthan gum in there, maybe another 1/4 teaspoon in the filling, and it'll come out just a little bit thicker for you, and you're absolutely gonna love it. And I like to serve this with some of my ice cream. And watch for that video coming out soon. I forgot to do it last summer, but I've got a great ice cream recipe, super simple, and I mean it's the perfect complement for this blackberry cobbler. I hope y'all enjoy this.
Now, what are you going to put on top of the cobbler but the best ice cream you can possibly make? Now, sure, you could go to the store and spend $8, $9, $10 on a pint of ice cream, or you can make this ice cream for less than 1/3 of the price, and you know everything that goes into it. Check it out.
Now, the first thing you're going to need for this keto ice cream is some heavy cream. You're going to need 1.5 cups of this. Of course, you can't have ice cream without heavy cream, so that's what we're going to use. The next ingredient you're going to need for this low carb ice cream is some almond milk. And you want to make sure and get the unsweetened original. This one I get at Aldi. Don't get the vanilla. We're going to add vanilla extract in just a minute. And you're going to need 1.5 cups of this. Make sure you don't get the sweetened kind. The next ingredient you're going to need is allulose. And I can even find this one at Walgreens and CVS if you can't find any allulose anywhere else. You can also use other sweeteners in this recipe, so make sure you stick around till the end, and I'll tell you what you can use and why. And you're going to need 3/4 cup of it. The next thing you're going to need is some vanilla extract. And you know my saying, buy real vanilla today, save a beaver along the way. You definitely don't want any of that fake stuff. Get the real deal. If you make it yourself, even better. And you're going to need 2 teaspoons of that. The next thing you're going to need is some unflavored gelatin. Beef gelatin is definitely the best. I've tried all of them. Some of them just don't give you the good results that this beef gelatin does. I'll put a link down below to where you can get this if you don't have it. And you're going to need 1/4 teaspoon of the gelatin. The next thing we're going to do is some xanthan gum. Now you know, in a lot of my recipes I use this xanthan gum. It's absolutely essential for keto cooking, and you need 1/8 teaspoon. Now, you're going to take your favorite stainless steel mixing bowl. It's not my favorite mixing bowl. Y'all know what that one is, but this is my favorite stainless steel one. And we're just going to add in the almond milk. Now, to the almond milk, I'm going to go ahead and add in my gelatin. Now, what this is going to do is just let that gelatin start to bloom a little bit, kind of absorb a lot of that liquid, and get ripe while we're putting all the other ingredients together. Make sure you give it a good whisk, try to fully incorporate it, and then we'll go on to the next step. So the next thing I'm going to do is take our gelatin and almond milk mixture and add in some heavy cream. I mean, you can't have a good full fat keto ice cream without cream, right? So then just whisk it up and keep going faster and faster. Just whisk it real good. I mean, some folks say this is whiskey business, but I say you just got to live a little. Make sure you get it all combined pretty good. The next thing we're going to do is add in our allulose. And then, since this is going to be a vanilla ice cream, go ahead and add in all the vanilla. Now, if you want a different flavor, you could substitute 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract for a different type of extract if you want. Like if you want an almond flavor, do 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 teaspoon of almond extract. Hey, it's up to you. The next thing you're going to add in is your salt. And I know you may be thinking, hey, this is a sweet dessert. What do I need salt for? Well, salt brings out all the flavors, and it makes it where you don't have to use as much sweetener because it really brings out the sweetness as well. Make sure you whisk it all up good together, and we'll go on to the next step. If you love keto desserts and you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you hit the button right down there, hit the bell beside it, and anytime I upload a new dessert video or any other video, you're gonna know about it. So the next step, we're gonna take a pot and we're gonna pour our ice cream base right into it. And we're gonna heat this up. Now this does a couple things. Once it gets up to temperature, xanthan gum needs to be at 125 degrees in order to fully absorb into this. So you need to bring it up to temperature. It's also gonna let the gelatin dissolve, and it's gonna make your results absolutely phenomenal. Now you can use either thermometer that you want to bring this up to temperature, and if you don't have a thermometer, I'll link the two that I use down there in the description as well as in my Amazon store. But just make sure you get it up to 125 degrees before you add in that xanthan gum. And if you're not taking this temperature to make sure it's got a nice fever going on, make sure you whisk it. We want to get all that xanthan gum and that gelatin fully incorporated in there. Now once you've got it up to temperature, remember 125 degrees, go ahead and turn off your heat source and take it off the heat to chill. Now this is the point where you want to put in your xanthan gum and make sure it's over 125 degrees. We'll go in with the xanthan gum. Now what the xanthan gum and the gelatin do is just stabilize this so that when you put it in the freezer, you can take it out of the freezer without having to thaw it out on the counter or anything like that. It's going to keep it the perfect ice cream consistency. Just stir it up really good. Make sure that xanthan gum is fully incorporated in there. And hopefully you didn't wash that bowl out from earlier, because we're going to pour it right back into there. Oh yeah. I know what's coming next. It's time to take a little trip into the fridge. You're going to put it in the fridge for a couple hours, or a little bit longer if you want to, but at least do it for 2 hours. It needs to be completely cool before we move on to the next step. So after 2 hours, we're going back in. Oh yeah. We're going to take that right back out of the fridge. It's ready now. I think it's time to make some ice cream. You want to? This is the ice cream maker I use. It's the Cuisinart 2-quart. It is super simple. It's an on and off. You leave this metal container that the ice cream actually mixes in your freezer. And so then anytime you're ready to make some ice cream, it's ready for you. So before you go into the ice cream maker with this, just make sure you engage in a little more of that whiskey business. Make sure the gelatin's in there good, the xanthan gum's all in, and then all you have to do is pour it right in the top of this metal part. This is so simple. I mean, kids and grandkids can do this. You basically take the little paddle, stick it right down inside. It fits right in a little hole in the bottom. Put it right there in place, and then just put the lid on. The next thing you gotta do, super simple, flip it on and you're good to go. It starts churning just like that. Oh yeah, it's time for some nice churning music. Check this out. Now after 20 or 25 minutes, this is what it starts to look like. I mean, you can tell it's ice cream now, right? This is the consistency right here that you want to look for. And it's just as simple as turning it on and it does the rest. So take your paddle out, get all that beautiful ice cream back off into the container. And now you've got decisions to make. You could eat it just like this if you wanted to. It's more of a really soft serve consistency. The way I designed this is to make it where you can put it in a quart container, put it in the freezer, and if you want to come back to it 2-3 days later, it'll have the same consistency. But hey, you can eat it right now if you want to. It is still delicious. It's got the great taste. This is the consistency of it. It's really soft. You put it on a little bit of a hot plate like that or a warm plate, oh man, it just slides around like that. But it's delicious right here, and of course, I'm gonna have to try a little bit of it right now. But what I like to do is just take these quart containers, and these are plastic, and again, I'll link down to these below. Every kitchen tool or ingredient that I use that may not be readily available to you, I always link down in the description. I've got an Amazon store down there so you can find all the things that I like to use. And I only use things that make my life in the kitchen easier, or the ingredients that make everything delicious. I just like to use tools that make my life easy. So basically just take all of that ice cream out, pack it in these quart containers, and just use a spatula just to press down the top a little bit. You just want it nice and smooth. You don't want to pack it in there. Just make it smooth on the top, and then put your lid on top there. It's like a rubber lid. It fits on there really well and makes it nice. Now I left it in for 2 hours just to show you what it looks like after a couple hours. So it's more firm than before. That's like a perfect soft serve consistency. And this is kind of what I like when I make the blackberry cobbler. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up above and in the description so you can check it out, because it's delicious. But this is the consistency of the ice cream that I like when I put it on cobblers and things like that. And then this is after 2 days. I scoop this out. It scoops out just like your favorite store-bought ice cream, or even better. You don't have to thaw it out for any length of time. And remember I told you earlier, I'd tell you what other sweeteners you can use. You could use the Magic Baker, you could use the Lakanto sweetener, or whatever your favorite sweetener is. It's just not going to be quite this consistency. It may be a little more firm. You may have to set it out for about 5 minutes.
Now you need something to wash down all this delicious food. How about some good old Southern keto sweet tea? Check it out.
So obviously, since we're making sweet tea, you're going to need some tea bags. Now this one is widely available all across the country. It's the Lipton black tea. It's heart healthy because of all the antioxidants in it. And these are the small bags. So if you do these, you're going to need 16 of those bags. The easier way, and hopefully you can find it in your area, is this Louisiana tea. Now these are 24 tea bags, family size. So they contain 4 times as much per bag. So if you use these, you're only going to need 4 of these family size tea bags. And this specially blended for iced tea and sweet tea. You're also going to need some baking soda. Now this is a big bag. Obviously you're not going to need 13.5 pounds of it. You only need a 1/4 teaspoon. The next thing you're going to need is some water. And we're going to start out with a quart of water, because we're going to boil these tea bags in this and make kind of a concentrate. And you're going to need a 1/2 gallon mason jar. And if you don't have any jars like this, I'll put a link down in the description where you can find them. You're going to need 2 cups of Magic Baker's Blend. I recommend this because you don't want to just use allulose, and you don't want to use just erythritol because this is going to be very sweet. Unless your stomach's real strong, if you use it all, you're going to know it. And the blend just makes a sweeter taste, more like sugar, more like traditional sweet tea. So the first thing we're going to do is just take a big pot on the stove and pour that quart of water in there. And we're just going to start bringing this up to a boil. So I'm going to turn it on a high heat to bring it up to a boil as fast as possible. Now this is Nana's method. I have never seen another recipe like this. This is just what she came up with, I believe. If you've ever seen this same method, let me know. But if you read any of the boxes on how to make sweet tea or any kind of recipes online, I haven't seen this exact method. But once you bring it up to a boil, just put your 4 family-sized tea bags in there, or your 16 tiny bags, and good luck keeping up with all those strings and all those tags if you do it that way. But hey, it can be done. And then after it boils, we're going to put the lid on it, and we're going to take it right off the heat. So it's just going to sit over there and chill for a little bit. We need to put a timer on the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 1 hour and 7 minutes. Nope. Man, this thing gets me every time. Set it for 1 hour, and then once it's done, come on back and I'll show you the next step.
If you're thirsty and you want some more drink recipes and you're not subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button down there and the bell next to it. Anytime I come up with a good drink, you'll know all about it. Now once your timer goes off and that hour is over, we're getting that much closer to some delicious Southern keto sweet tea. So just take your concentrate over to the counter and de-lid it. Is that a word? De-lid? Anyway, take the lid off. Go ahead and pull up those tea bags.
And I'm going to take this little tea bag squeezer. Now, be real careful with this. She swore by this method, but if you squeeze these too hard, there's tannins in that tea, and it makes it really, really bitter. But what she liked to do is just give it a little squeeze like this. Now, she used 2 spoons, or she just grab it with her hands and do it, but I like this little thing because in case it's real hot, I don't really want to burn myself. So anyway, I'll put a link to that thing down there if you don't have one. But just squeeze it out just very gently, just to get most of the liquid out. And you could use your hands too if you wanted to. And then this is what you're left with, this beautiful, delicious tea concentrate. Now notice it's a little bit cloudy, and I'm going to show you what to do about that in just a minute. But this is specially blended for home sweet home. And man, you're going to love it. Now the next thing you do is just pour in that sweetener, whatever you decide to use. But I'm going to use this Magic Bakers and pour it in really, really slow. And just start stirring it up to dissolve all that right in that concentrate. And one thing about just about any kind of tea, they put these little tags on them, and it's absolutely specially blended for unplugging. That's a fact. It's good for any time. Now let's say you went a little bit over an hour, not saying I did, but I might have, and it got just a little bit too cool. Just bring it up gently on the stove, a low temperature, just enough to heat it up so that your sweetener will dissolve in there. It's not going to hurt the taste. It's good if you can just get it right after an hour, and normally it'll stir right in, but hey, if you go a little too long, it's okay. Don't bring it up to a high boil real quick, just kind of gentle, maybe on a medium low, just to dissolve it. And then we're going to go in with a little bit of baking soda, and that's the secret. Remember I was telling you how cloudy that looked? This baking soda, once you stir that in, it gets incorporated in that mix. It makes it where it's not cloudy anymore. It takes all that cloudiness right out of it. And I think it adds a little bit to the flavor too, because baking soda's got a little bit of a salty taste, and I think that just adds to that sweetness. And now we're going to take that empty half-gallon mason jar and just pour that concentrate right into there. And notice it still looks a little bit cloudy when you look at it like that, but believe me, by the end, it's going to be nice and clear. It's going to be a beautiful, sweet tea. And now, we just take some plain water and fill this gallon jar all the way up, because this makes a gallon of tea. So we'll just fill it up all the way with that water. If you didn't get enough the first time, come back and add just a little bit more. And on these gallon jars, there's a line right at the top, and that's the line that you want to fill it up to. It's right up, not that one, that one. So fill it all the way up to that. And if you go a little bit over, that's okay. It's going to be just a little bit weaker, plus that'll give you a little something to sip on, try it out, and make sure it's right. And now you just want to take one of these plastic lids, and I like using these because they're really easy. If you've ever used those metal rings, you know sometimes they rust and get all nasty. You don't have to worry about it with these. But just put the lid on that gallon jar and just gently give it a little side-to-side shaking action. Now you could go ahead and pour it right over ice right now and enjoy it. But what I like to do is let it take just a little bit of a rest right in the fridge for at least an hour, or until I just can't stand it anymore and I have to take it out. But this just helps all the flavors get together. Oh yeah. She always did this, so I do it, and it is ready to go. And it's time for the most fun part of any recipe. That's right, it's time to try it out. So get yourself a nice glass, fill it up with ice. You can get a little more than that if you want to, but oh man, I want you to hear that sound. It's a beautiful thing. And I just like to finish it with a little garnish of lemon, which I will squeeze out into it because it makes it absolutely delicious. I hope you love it. If you've never tried or heard of sweet tea before, now's the time.
Man, I don't know about you, but I'm stuffed. I hope you enjoyed this 4th of July video. I hope you have a great 4th. Remember why we celebrate it. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.